Chinese automakers are rising fast amid the Iran war. It sounds like a sensational headline, but what is really worth examining is not the emotion but the logic behind it. Because if you only look at the surface, it may seem like an accidental event. But if you put together oil prices, energy security, global auto demand, and China's manufacturing capacity, you will see that this is more like the sudden acceleration of an industrial outcome that had been years in the making. First, look at the most direct data. On April 9th, Bloomberg cited data from the China Passenger Car Association showing that China's exports of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles in March rose 140% year-on-year to a record 349,000 units. BYD accounted for about one-third of the total, while Geely and Chery ranked among the top exporters. What does that tell us? It shows that in this latest round of energy shocks, global buyers are indeed more willing to turn their attention to EVs and hybrids. Why is that happening? Because the first thing affected by conflict involving Iran is not car factories, but expectations surrounding oil. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical energy shipping routes. The International Energy Agency has pointed out that about 29% of crude oil imported by IEA member countries passes through the Strait of Hormuz, with Japan and South Korea especially dependent on this route. The World Economic Forum, citing industry data, has also noted that roughly one-quarter of the world's oil flows through the strait. As long as tensions in the Middle East escalate, the market's first concern is simple. Will oil become more expensive? Will shipping costs rise? Will the cost of driving a gasoline-powered car continue to increase over the next few years? Once those worries spread, consumers and importers begin to recalculate. In the past, many buyers may have looked first at brand names. Now, in many markets, the first questions are, is the car fuel efficient? Does it have a hybrid version? If oil prices remain volatile, how much lower will the total cost of ownership be over 3 years? And this is exactly where Chinese automakers have become strongest in recent years. Chinese car makers did not suddenly become competitive after the war broke out. The real transformation had already happened long before the conflict. China has built a complete industrial chain covering batteries, motors, electronic control systems, vehicle assembly, and port shipment. In recent years, the International Energy Agency has repeatedly emphasized China's central role in global clean energy manufacturing, especially in batteries and related supply chains. In other words, others only started looking for solutions after oil prices rose. Chinese automakers had already prepared those solutions. So this wave of export growth is not about taking advantage of a gap. It is about being ready to catch demand when it arrives. More importantly, what global buyers want right now is not just high-end pure EVs. What many countries really need falls into two categories. The first is affordable pure electric cars that can compete with local brands on price. The second is hybrid cars that can ease anxiety over fuel prices without depending too heavily on charging infrastructure. These are exactly the segments where Chinese brands have become most competitive in recent years. Their vehicles offer high specifications, low pricing, and rapid model updates, and their overseas expansion has been extremely aggressive. It is no accident that BYD, Geely, and Chery rank near the top of the export charts. They have deliberately built product lines aimed at the market segments where volume is easiest to achieve. There is another reality that is often overlooked. Geopolitical conflict does not just make oil more expensive, it also changes how governments and consumers understand energy security. In the past, many people saw buying a gasoline car as just an ordinary consumer choice. Now, more and more countries are beginning to realize that transportation itself is part of energy security. When the Middle East becomes unstable, reducing dependence on imported oil is no longer just an environmental issue. It becomes an economic issue and even a security issue. That is why war does not automatically benefit every car company. The real winners are those that can immediately offer alternatives, and at this moment, Chinese automakers happen to be among the best prepared. But this point should also be made clearly. If you say that the Iran war created the success of Chinese automakers, that is not accurate, because the rise of China's auto industry has at least 3 deeper causes. First, the industrial chain is complete. From batteries to finished vehicles, China's domestic supply network is highly efficient and exceptionally strong at cost control. Second, competition in the domestic market is brutally intense. Chinese car makers have spent years fighting price wars, feature wars, and speed of iteration wars at home. What they developed was not higher profit margins, but extraordinary product adaptability. Third, the export system has matured. It is not just that the cars can be built. Ports, logistics, overseas dealer networks, local assembly, and after-sales service have all expanded together. So a more accurate way to put it is this. The Iran War did not create the strength of Chinese automakers, but it made the world realize more quickly that Chinese cars are exactly the kind of affordable, practical, and readily available alternative that this stage of the market demands. Behind this is a much larger shift. In the past, the world bought cars based on who could build the best engines. Now more and more markets are asking who can help them reduce exposure to oil price volatility. Once the rules change, the advantages change too. And what Chinese automakers are strongest at right now is not just building cars, it is their ability to deliver large numbers of vehicles that are practical, affordable, well-equipped, and fast to ship into overseas markets amid energy uncertainty, volatile costs, and rapidly shifting demand. That is the real point. So if you ask whether the Iran war suddenly caused the rise of Chinese automakers, the answer is no. It did not make them rise overnight. It simply accelerated the world's recognition of them. War increased anxiety over oil prices. Anxiety over oil prices increased interest in EVs and hybrids. And Chinese automakers happen to be standing at the end of that chain. What is truly reshaping the industry is not the war itself, but the way war has forced everyone to confront one question. When oil becomes more expensive and more unstable, who can provide the most cost-effective next car? At the moment, more and more countries seem to be giving the same answer: China's automakers.